Welcome to your iconic image. If you want to take control of your image and be a power player in your space, then this is the show for you. Here we will arm you with tools and information to help you grow your brand on purpose. I'm your host, Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Now let's dive into today's episode. Raquel Borras is the queen of goofiness, chief excitement officer at True to You Branding, founder of RAQVISION, and all-around powerhouse. Welcome, Raquel.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because over the last couple of years, I have watched you and your business and brand explode. So what part did vulnerability play in all of that?
It played a huge part. I tell people that I wouldn't be where I am right now with RAQVISION and everything that I'm doing with our youth if it weren't for the fact that I was so vulnerable and opened up about my past struggles on LinkedIn. So I shared my story of having struggled with depression when I was in college, and I attempted suicide while I was at UCLA, and I never spoke about it because there was so much shame. Mm-hmm. And we all know that, now it's better. You can talk about it and it's not as shameful, but there was a point in time where I just would tell people I didn't graduate for medical reasons, and that was that. And it was 2 years ago that I shared my story on LinkedIn because I felt, okay, I need to be someone that exposes herself in a way of like, hey, I know everyone sees me as this happy-go-lucky person. I'm always smiling, laughing, but, I've had my moments as well. We all have. And that was probably the best thing I could have done.
So how did you get to the core of what you wanted to share or what you felt the need to share?
Well, it was really spontaneous because what happened is one of my colleagues at the time, who's in the mortgage industry, CEO of a mortgage company, he and I had just been at a conference. We were talking about our mental health, and he had family members that had struggled. And we were just talking about how it's important to just kind of share those stories because he had no idea about me. And then it was Mental Health Awareness Month, and he did a video and he said, as leaders, we need to do what we can to change the narrative. Like we have to be the ones to step up and talk about it so it's not so taboo. And when he did that, I don't know what came over me that I just grabbed my phone, I hit record and just shared my story. I mean, it was like 6 minutes. I cried a little bit. I did a one take. I knew that it needed to come from the heart, and I went ahead and posted it. And I almost had like a mini panic attack in that moment because I thought, what did I just do? And I just did it on LinkedIn. So I thought maybe I was going to get a lot of backlash, but it was the complete opposite. It was amazing. The minute I hit post, how many people were calling me, texting me, messaging me, saying, thank you. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Or I had classmates, or I have a lot of UCLA classmates that were connected. And so many had no clue. And they were like, thank you for sharing, because I too was struggling at that time. And I'm like, you were? So it just goes to show how we can hide things very easily and make it seem like everything's okay when it really isn't. And yeah, and there was no going back in that moment. That's for sure, because of the feedback that I got.
So what was the scariest part?
It was the judgment, because along with, attempting suicide, you have a lot of people that believe that that's, the cop out, or that's so selfish. And so I didn't really want to have people judge me for that reason. Like I didn't want it to get down that route. And so I thought, oh gosh, maybe I opened up a can of worms of people just in that judgment zone. And nobody judged me. I actually was really surprised and shocked and pleasantly surprised how supportive everybody was. But yeah, I just didn't want to be labeled that way, because there's so many people that will come out with a story and then suddenly people want to kind of put them in that box. And I'm not that person anymore. I'm such a different person. So that's what was I was afraid of that as well, that suddenly people were going to be, oh, well, she suffered from mental health issues. She had clinical depression. So what does that mean? Does that mean that she can go into a state of depression any moment? No, that's not the case.
And I think that's important too, because when we share our stories, especially when we have overcome something, when you're at that place where you've overcome it, you're kind of in some ways talking to the person that you were back then, but you're looking to share this with anybody and connect to somebody who needs to hear it and also needs to know that, yes, this is where I was, but this is where I am now. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's really important. I think there's a reason why I have so many people asking me to share my story, because I think I do in a way where it's not heavy. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm a victim of it. It's just a story, an experience that I had that has helped me and has gotten to me where I am today. And I think too many people, when they talk about suicide, it's usually a family member or a friend that has already lost a loved one. So it's a different story. And I feel that there needs to be more of us that are suicide attempt survivors that are in a really good place, so that we can share the skills and the tools and share how we were able to get over that hump, if you will, because I think that's what's really important. Is too many kids now think it's the end of the world if something happens. Like, they don't
Mhm.
understand that it's not the end of the world. Like, you can overcome it. And once you're on the other side, beautiful things can happen. And that could turn, your struggle can turn into your superpower.
Mhm. What would you say to people that think, I can't share that much of myself,
Mhm.
or I'm afraid to share that much of myself? What would you say to them?
Well, obviously you have to respect where you're at. And if it's, you're not ready, you're not ready. I do feel that there's a lot of people that will go to the grave without sharing a lot of things. And that's, that's their lives, right? So I can't judge them for not sharing anything, but I can say that you might be missing out on your purpose by not sharing. I feel like this is my purpose, me empowering kids and inspiring them and helping our youth. I have found that purpose because I was able to share my story and be so open, and then be someone that can help our youth because of it. And if I hadn't shared anything, who's to say where I'd be right now? And so that's where I feel like too many people don't see that if you share, people out there are going to respond in a way that you just never know where it'll take you.
Do you Have you found that it is more difficult for adults to share or more difficult for youth to share?
That is a good question, because, when I was young, it was very difficult for me to share. So, and I didn't for years. And then I have kids. I have a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they actually will share with me, but it's because I've been so open with them. So I feel that as adults, if we share more, then maybe our kids would be more inclined to know that it's okay to share as well. I mean, obviously, there is a fine line of, I guess, sharing too much, if you will, in the moment. I think there's a respect level as well, right? I feel that the only reason why I was able to share what I did on LinkedIn per se is that I had really built a community that I had trusted, and there was respect there. I had been on the platform for years. So I felt that I already had created a community that was going to embrace me. Had I
Mhm.
just gone on that platform and then shared it, maybe it would have been a different story, but there was that trust there. So I believe that the respect and trust also has to be built. And then so that when you do share, you're going to have your support, and you're going to maybe have people that don't support you, and that's okay, right? Not everybody is going to be in your corner.
Mhm.
That's okay.
And at which you also bring up an interesting point. You work with kids under 17
Yeah.
primarily. That is not LinkedIn. So, from a branding standpoint, too, how did you use that platform to speak and share your story, but find your audience at the
Yeah.
end?
So a lot of them are the parents, right? So they're on LinkedIn because I started Raq The Boat, which is a YouTube show that I have. And it started out with the parents that I knew, just kind of saying, hey, I think my child would be great to talk to. And it just kind of steamrolled, where I just uploaded, I think, episode 53. So I've had 53 conversations. Some of them are repeats. Some of the kids come back on, like Eris, who's 12 years old, is on the spectrum. We just had our fourth conversation a couple days ago. We're gonna have another one because I've built a rapport with him. And his parents were so proud of him, because being that he's on the spectrum, it's very hard for him to open up right away. And he's begun to build this trust with me. So every time we speak, he opens up even more. And his parents love that he's coming out of his shell, because he's not a very social kid. He's very introverted. But with me, we've just built this rapport and this friendship. And that's what's happening with some other kids as well. And then what happens is, because I'm also on Instagram, and I'll repurpose a little bit on Instagram, I have 16, 17-year-olds reach out to me on their own, asking if they can be on the show. not their parents. It's them. Clearly I have parents sign consent.
Right.
So their parents know that they're doing it. But yeah, it's really cool when you have kids wanting to talk to you. Like that's on LinkedIn as well. There's a lot of 16, 17, 8-year-olds, 18-year-olds, excuse me, on LinkedIn. And they see what I do and they reach out to me.
So tell everybody that, for those that don't know, tell us what Raq The Boat is and also what RAQVISION is.
Yes. So Raq The Boat started out as me wanting to do some kind of show. I mean, everyone kept telling me, oh, you're a guest on so many podcasts and lives. Why don't you host your own thing? And I thought I would love that, but I want to do something different. And it was right in the middle of the pandemic. And once again, being that I'm a mother of a 17-year-old, I've seen it all with social media. And then you add the pandemic, and I thought, you know what? No one's having conversations with our kids. Like no one's asking them how they're feeling. And I thought that's a different audience. And I love kids. I'm a kid myself. So for me, I love spontaneity and I love not knowing where a conversation is going to go. So I thought with kids, that's the best, because with adults, everybody wants to come on and promote themselves. It's there's more of a structure there, and I didn't want structure. So I literally will hit the Zoom, like the record button, and just start asking questions and just have the conversation go where it may. And from there, I realized how much I loved giving these kids a voice, and they loved it too. And so then RAQVISION came about because my friend had a social network for 18 and over. And he thought, you know what? And it's all about self-love, self-first, personal growth. He's like, and connection and community. He's like, we need to do the same for our youth. He's like, Raquel, you're the perfect person to create this platform 17 and under. So that's how RAQVISION came about. And we just launched June 1st. And we have, we facilitate rooms. So we have adults that come in, for instance, like Justin Guarini from American Idol. We have Rob House, who's big on LinkedIn, and he does mindset, and Michael Ray, who random acts of kindness, and they come in and they facilitate these rooms with these kids. And it's fun, but also motivational, inspirational, empowering, because I want any kid that comes onto this platform to walk away a better human, essentially, and a better person out in the world. Because I think that's what we need. We need to get away from the vanity metrics. And a lot of these kids are basing their worth around how many people are liking their posts or if a video goes viral. And that's what's happening. And so it's really affecting our kids' mental health and well-being.
Yeah,
so
I know. I have said to youth that I know, when you look at somebody's Instagram feed or whatever, you are looking at a curated version of their life. You're watching their highlight reel.
Yeah.
And
they want you to see.
Right. And I can take 10 different images and just by the way I edit, tell you different stories. So you can't trust what you're seeing as the full package of somebody's life.
Yeah. And to have these adults come in and they themselves have had struggle. Like, for instance, there's Kyle Green, who's an amazing person. And he had a kid at age 16. He had a mother who was on drugs. He had a father that was non-existent. I mean, all of these things. And so he talks about adversity. He talks about like, hey, I had everything against me. Like all the statistics said that I shouldn't be here where I am today. And here he's written 2 books and he's a motivational speaker and he has another child who plays basketball. And so I love having him speak and having these kids like look at him when he says, yeah, I had a kid at 16. They're like, oh, or yeah, my mom, I used to see her do, coke on a mirror, like not understand what it was, but like all these things where kids like just go, oh my goodness, and you're this person today. It's so I love being able to do that for these kids, to be like, see, like we as adults too have gone through things. It's not just you. Because I think kids get in that space of like, oh, nobody understands, and adults, they don't get it. It's like, yes, we do get it.
So what kind of a shift do you see in kids when they see an adult be vulnerable?
I see a huge shift because it gives them permission to be able to be vulnerable. Because I think a lot of kids have parents, and this is, everybody's different, have parents that feel like we're the parents, so we have to be perfect. We can't show any vulnerability. We can't tell many mistakes that we've made or we can't share with things we did in the past, because then that might give them the permission to do it as well. So I think that's what happens a lot of times. And so these kids, they start emulating that behavior, right? And so when they do see adults willing to open up and be like, hey, this is what happened. Like, I failed. I hadn't made a mistake. And then they're kind of like, oh, okay, cool. then maybe it's okay that I'm not, doing well right now, or I made a mistake, or I'm failing a little bit. Yeah, I think we need to change the narrative, like on social media, and a lot has to do with adults. I really do feel that there's a lot of us that are doing a disservice to our youth by putting ourselves out there in this perfect way. And this, we're guilty of it. Like, I'm guilty of it on Instagram, the filters, making things look pretty. But I always have to remind myself, like, is this helping? No, because all it's doing is perpetuating the problem.
Well, I think too, there comes a point where everybody gets so hung up on, oh, influencers. And a friend of mine had said once, you need to decide if you want to be an influencer or a person of influence, because there's a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
And so what are some of the best stories that you've had come out of this, or the best experiences you've had come out of this?
Well, I will tell you this, Saturday. So I have Natasha, she likes to go by Pepper. I've had her on the Raq The Boat 4 times, and she's a RAQVISION member. And I've never met her mom. Her mom and I were colleagues, but she was in town because she used to live in Virginia. So she was in town. Well, on Saturday, I got to pick her up at her friend's. We had never met, and she's 13. I took her out to lunch. She loves Texas Roadhouse or whatever. So we went there and we stuffed ourselves. And I took her to a local park by where I live, brought her to my place so she could see my home. Then we went to Starbucks for dessert. Like, to be able to have that experience with someone that I've only met through, Zoom, and have had those conversations, and then have her be a part of RAQVISION, and then have it come to life. I tell people that I don't want to just be lip service. I don't want to be someone that's like, okay, I'm only going to care about you when we're doing the show or when you're on my platform. It's like, no, I really want to be able to build a friendship with these kids, because that's what makes a huge difference. The fact that, Pepper felt comfortable enough to hang out with me all day. Not many 13-year-olds would be like, hey, I can't wait to meet you. And we took pictures. I did a post about it a couple days ago with pictures of us. And that's when it feels really right. Like, in that moment, I'm like, this is it. Like, to be able to do what I'm doing, but also be able to take it outside and have Pepper open up to me and talk to me about certain things that I know that she just might not be able to talk to her parents, like, to have a confidant. Like, and I know her parents are super grateful for that. Like, they're so happy that she has an adult besides her parents that she feels comfortable enough to just be herself.
So what are your plans and visions for all of this?
See, that's the thing, is that before I felt like I needed to know everything, or like what was going to happen. And now I love that I have not much control. I mean, obviously I have some control, but I love that I have no idea what's going to come of this next week. Like, May 5th is when Jason came to me about RAQVISION. Before that, like, if you had said that this was going to happen, I would have just laughed and been like, yeah, right. So I've come to just trust the process and the journey and let things unfold in the way that they're supposed to. So that part has become really exciting for me. Clearly, I want to continue to make an impact. How that is going to pan out, I don't know. I just know that, like, this is the trajectory of my journey. Like, this is where it's supposed to go with our youth. Like that, I can feel it wholeheartedly.
What do you think the ability to be vulnerable, how closely is that tied to bravery?
I think it's really tied closely. I mean, I thought vulnerability meant it was a weakness. I was that person that grew up thinking that, oh, if you're vulnerable, that means that you're, weak. But now I realize that it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. It really does. It's really not that easy to open up. So I understand why so many people don't do it. I get it. But once you do it, there's something so empowering and liberating about it as well, that it's such a great feeling that you think, gosh, like, I want everybody to feel this way.
So what is something that somebody can do to start to be a little more vulnerable, do you think? Whether it be a kid or an adult?
Well, I think, obviously everybody has kind of their inner circle and people they trust. So if they just maybe start opening up more to those people, and then they kind of realize like, okay, it's okay to keep going and keep speaking up, I think that helps. But not everybody has that inner circle. So, I mean, even with social media, if you just start sharing little snippets, you'll see what your audience kind of gravitates towards. And oddly enough, every time I've seen someone open up a little bit or really kind of show the behind the scenes or show something that's really truthful about themselves, like that's where everybody applauds you. And so I think that like that helps when you kind of get that validation, because we all do need some valid form of validation. And I feel that once you get that validation of like, yes, like, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so open. I too felt the same way. Thank you for letting me know that I'm not alone. That I think in turn is going to fuel you even more, because you're going to realize like, wow, I'm actually helping someone. Like, that's how I see it. If I can help one person by sharing my story, like that in itself is incredibly powerful. And then just think, if it keeps going and going, what an impact you can have. And that I think just kind of fuels you even more to keep sharing.
And based on what you just said, I'm going to just pull on that a little bit. What about the people that say, well, if I share all these things about me, then I'm just being boastful, or I'm looking for attention, or I'm doing all these things. What about the fact that that's not the reason why you're doing it? Talk a little bit about your feelings on all that.
I'm of the mindset of like, if you're speaking from the heart and you have good intentions, then it doesn't matter. I think people can tell, right? If you're trying to do it in order to get attention, or you're like, oh, I want to, jump on the bandwagon or whatever, people can sense that. I know I can, like you can tell when it's super genuine. And so, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. If it's coming from a good place in your heart, then I wouldn't worry, because you're always going to have people that might be haters or judge. And I always have to remind myself that those are people that they themselves are going through something, or they have insecurities that for whatever reason they feel that that's how they need to make themselves feel better, is by being mean or criticizing or judging. And that's where those people, I kind of ignore them and just be like, I wish them nothing but the best, because those are the ones that are suffering the most, I believe.
And when you do posts now, do you speak to the many that you know are listening, or the one?
Good question. I probably the one, where before I think it was just kind of like, oh, I got to get as many people to listen to what I have to say. And now I realize that it's important to have my message be to the people that matter. And so when I do my post, especially on LinkedIn, a lot of it's for parents and even the kids that are on there. And then Instagram, I try to kind of focus on the kids as well. So when I'm goofy, I do that on purpose too, because I want kids to see me as someone like, okay, yes, she might be 45, almost 46, but she gets us, and she also knows how to have fun and be playful. And that way they know that they can relate to me, and that they want to be on a platform like RAQVISION, because they know that I'm coming from a place of like, yeah, I get it. Like, we should all still have fun and play, but at the same time, like, let's also be very mindful and support, self-awareness and all of those things. So yeah, I'm definitely more intentional about what I post. That's for sure.
And what would you say that your underlying message throughout all of it is?
Just being comfortable with who you are. I think that's kind of the underlining message. Like, I'll do videos with no makeup on, or I'll do, pictures where they're not very flattering or anything, but I do that because I want to show like, hey, I'm comfortable enough with myself that I'm able to put myself out there in this way, and hoping that others will see that and be like, okay, if she can do it, and it's really not the end of the world, or come on, let's not take ourselves so seriously, that I want to do it too. And I think the more of us that do that, once again, it gives permission for kids to be like, okay, because they're kids. I mean, I think that we forget that too. Just because of social media and the way, technology, it doesn't mean that they need to speed up their maturity level. It's like they let them still be kids. And I think for whatever reason, we put pressure on our kids a little bit more nowadays because they have access to everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's fair.
Yeah. Pressure on our kids and pressure on ourselves to be that perfect thing.
Yeah. And this week on Raq The Boat, perfection seemed to be the theme. I was talking about perfection with an 18-year-old, with Eris, who's 12. And it's interesting because it just goes to show that, yeah, we're still putting this pressure on our younger generations that they think that they need to be perfect. And I was like, oh gosh, like clearly we're not doing a good job if our kids still think that that's attainable.
Yeah. And that would be a whole show in itself.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that, Raquel, I just have 4 final questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
I've gotten a lot of advice, but one thing that I always kind of remember my dad used to tell me is wherever you go, there you are. Kind of meaning that like you have to really be comfortable with who you are as a person, because no matter, you can try to escape, you can try to move to a different city or different town, be someone, but essentially at the end of the day, like you are who you are. And because of that, I've really learned like who I am. Is you really, I think too many of us try to escape ourselves.
Very true.
Yeah.
Share with us one thing on your bucket list.
I want to skydive.
Oh, God love you.
I would like to jump out of a plane. I know it's crazy, but hey.
Okay. I know people that can help you with that though.
Okay, thanks.
When the toy companies finally get around to making an action figure of you, what 2 accessories will it come with?
I think the 2 accessories, one would be a disco ball because I love to dance. That to me is very therapeutic. And the second would be a paintbrush because that's another thing for me is painting. So those 2 things have really essentially saved me, if you will.
Love it. And if any of this resonated with anybody and they want to learn more about your community or Raq The Boat or RAQVISION or any of it, how do people get involved? How do people find you?
Right. Okay. So you can go over to YouTube and subscribe to Raq The Boat. So it's RAQ, get it? Raquel, Raq The Boat. And then RAQVISION, you can go to www.raqvision.tv and find out like all the rooms that we have going on. And we're going to have special guests coming up as well. So I'm really excited. And then you can follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram, all under Raquel Borras. So those are, and I do have a TikTok, but it's really lame. But if you want to follow me on TikTok, but yeah.
But showing her vulnerability.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. See, I still have my moments where I'm like, TikTok, I can't do that. My daughter's friends will see me.
Well, thank you so very much, Raquel. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Please comment, like, or share this episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more information on how I can help you create your iconic image, visit marlanasemenza.com.